nation's history. We 50 years ago, followed through with the Poor People's Campaign in Washington, D.C. after the assassination of Dr. King. And so today we are very heartened to see our senator hard at work representing the people and looking at our system, our federal system, our voting system, something that the NAACP cares deeply about. And it's something that really defines our nation. And today more than ever, we need to build trust in our systems and in our supreme system that supports voting and the equal access and dignity for all people. The NAACP, as you know, has created 109 years ago with this in mind. And so it's disheartening that we still are hard at work trying to secure the vote, but we will not stop until we defeat hate with the votes and that we secure the vote for all people. So I'd like to thank the senator for coming out today and visiting Eugene and representing the state of Oregon with such grace and intelligence and compassion, because we need to have more of all three of those things in our leaders, and he represents us well. So without further ado, Senator Wyden.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so appreciative of the NAACP being our host today. Once again, they are stepping up for the community. This is not a one-off matter for the organization. Again and again, they have been there in the fight for justice and liberty and freedom for all Americans. So I am so appreciative of having the opportunity to be with them and friends. I think we all understand what is at stake. There are only 68 days until the 2018 midterm election, and Donald Trump and his administration, unfortunately, are doing nothing to deal with the prospect of the Russians who attacked our democracy in 2016, and on the basis of the president's own intelligence officials, represent a serious threat to our country and to our democratic institutions. The fact is, the Russians are essentially like the burglars who skulk around the neighborhood, literally going from door to door to door, looking for opportunities, doors left open, places where they can penetrate our democracy. Now, we're here today for one essential reason, and that is Oregon voters should not have to wait for the rest of our country to join in protecting American democracy from hackers, from hostile foreign states and others who right now are getting an open invitation to penetrate our democratic institutions. I have now, for well over a year, taken on a particularly powerful lobby in Washington, D.C. They're the voting machine companies, and they really think that they are above the law. They have been unwilling to respond to questions. They essentially lied to the public about whether they had installed at one point remote access software in their voting machines. That is about as bad for American voters as taking our ballots and transporting them to the streets of Moscow. And yet the biggest company, ES&S, lied to the American people. They recently admitted it to me in a letter because they knew that they were going to get caught. So that's what we're up against. A hostile administration, frankly an administration, if they wanted to, could take steps to get paper ballots all across the country and risk-limiting audits, but instead has sat on their hands. So I have introduced legislation to do just that. It's called the PAVE Act, Protecting America Votes and Elections, and I did it because Donald Trump's own Homeland Security Secretary, Kirstjen Nielsen, said in one of our Open Intelligence Committee hearings that paperless voting machines pose a national security concern. This is Donald Trump, Secretary of Homeland Security. Those are her words, not mine. So you have a president who clearly is not willing to step up to deal with the challenge, even when his own Homeland Security Secretary says it's essential. And let's kind of bring it home. We would never ask Coos Bay and a small town in Oklahoma and a small town in Florida to take on national security. National security is when we all come together as a nation, 320 million strong, and protect our democratic institutions. And to do that, I have introduced the PAVE Act that stipulates two things. One, there'll be a paper ballot for every single vote cast in America. So that there is a protect all Americans from a hack. And second, there would be risk-limiting audits. And that's particularly important because we know, using that analogy of the Russians and hostile foreign states on the Intelligence Committee, can't get into anything classified, but you got to have these risk-limiting audits after an election to determine what kinds of threats may be represented. Now, this was a big week for the cause of paper ballots and the cause of real audits, because two very prominent senators and the American Civil Liberties Union joined in sponsoring the bill. Our new senator from California, who is widely recognized already as one of the up-and-coming Democratic leaders, not just in the Senate and the country, Kamala Harris is a co-sponsor. Kamala Harris is a co-sponsor of the legislation, and Senator Bernie Sanders signed on to the bill. So we know we're just not going to give in to the president's schemes to make it hard for Americans to vote. We all know the picture of what it's like right before an election, people standing in lines in the heat and the like, and we know it doesn't have to be this way because we vote by mail. But at a minimum, we ought to have a paper ballot for every ballot cast. And I'll close by way of saying that it is so appropriate that Mr. Richardson and the good people of NAACP are hosting us, because the Trump tactics with respect to business as usual on voting especially hurt working class folks, people of color, young people, and Americans with disabilities. In fact, the only people who benefit from Trump's idea of an approach to elections are lobbyists and special interests.
Shame on that.
So we'd like to go the distance, and that means that everybody in America should get a ballot by mail. Now, I don't think we can get that.
I like that, though. We like that.
But what we can do is we can get a paper ballot for every single American. Companies there who can make it, we can get them out. We ought to get those kind of audits. Because by the way, if you have some kind of fake audit or not a very rigorous audit, what happens is everybody looks at it and goes, oh, well, we didn't see any problems. And then all the fraudsters can go out and take advantage of you again because somebody said, oh, there wasn't any problem with an audit. So that's what we're up against. We're lucky to have Becky Gladstone, first Vice President of the League of Women Voters, who will make some remarks next, and then we'll take some questions. Ms. Gladstone, thank you, and to all of you wonderful, advocates. It is so good to be with you. What my wife would say, Steer, you are running with the right crowd. Okay? Thanks, everybody.
I will try my best. Good afternoon. I'm Becky Gladstone, First Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Oregon. Thank you for inviting us to talk about election security. For nearly 100 years, and since our beginning, the League of Women Voters has worked to empower voters and defend democracy. We have stood proudly and solidly in favor of open government, transparency in its procedures, and public access to records and data. Our election system should be no different. We're grateful for the leadership of Senator Wyden on this very important issue. In the wake of reported foreign interference in our 2016 elections, we believe it's critical to protect our election systems across the country for the 2018 midterm elections and beyond. The League supported the Help America Vote Act when it was drafted and adopted. We continue to support the standards, best practices, and sharing the Election Assistance Commission does with election administrators around the country. When we vote, we use our voice to pick our leaders and the policies by which we want to be governed. Voters must be able to have confidence in election results. As a country, we must prioritize making our voting systems secure, accurate, recountable, accessible, and transparent to all Americans, and especially those of underrepresented communities. The League supports voter verifiable paper ballots because we want voters to be confident in the votes they cast. We support establishing risk-limiting audits that use statistical principles to certify election results because we want voters to know that the votes they cast are accurately reflected in the final tally. Safeguarding our elections is a national security issue. The League will continue to work to protect and reaffirm voter confidence in the face of reported foreign intrusion. We call on Congress to move policies forward to ensure that our elections will remain free and fair. We thank champions like Senator Wyden for his leadership on this very important issue. Thank you.
Great.